Good morning and welcome to the Big Buzz Breakfast Club. We are excited to have you with us today as we talk about hiring for the long run. Just a couple of housekeeping items. This session is being recorded and it will be shared post-event with an email. We invite you to put any questions that you may have in the Q&A box or in the chat, and we will do our very best to answer them at the end. Many of the items that were submitted ahead of time are included in the presentation the best that we can, and then we will cover anything more specific at the end of today's presentation. We also want to ensure that our presentations are as accessible as possible. So please, if you need to adjust your closed captioning, you can click on the bottom, on the button at the bottom of your screen to select disable. So I know we've got a lot of friends with us this morning who know about Big Buzz Idea Group, but for those of you who don't know, Big Buzz Idea Group, we are an outsourcing partner for nonprofits and associations. We know that many nonprofit executives lack the staff, time, skills, and funding that they need. Big Buzz Idea Group fills gaps in management, marketing, events, and consultations so that you can focus on the big picture and position your organization to thrive. So I want to start with this quote today. You don't build a business, you build people, then people build the business, by Zig Ziglar. I want to start this morning by really just putting out my disclaimer that I am not a trained HR professional. Everything I've learned the hard way, and I've done most of the hiring and the interviewing and all of these processes. I've had a lifetime of learning that I really started out doing everything wrong and have continued to adjust and refine my process in a way that I continue to want to share it with others. I know that these days the Great Resignation is affecting a lot of nonprofits in particular as you are working hard to try to power up your mission and move your organizations forward. And it can be very frustrating. But I think that the good news is that you've never been more positioned to be able to magnetically attract people to you, because many people are leaving jobs because they don't feel that they're making an impact or making a difference. And the beauty of all of the nonprofit organizations is that that's why you exist. And so if you do a good job at really putting yourselves out there in the marketplace, I think that you can do a few things to help you find the right people that will help your organization soar. I like to talk about my overall just managerial experiences. And I think that my first job out of college was awful. It was a hugely toxic environment. I found that I was often in charge of hiring and trying to onboard and bring people into that atmosphere. And as I look back, it just felt awful all the way around. And there was a huge revolving door. People were, leaving all the time. And so when I started Big Buzz Idea Group, we're going to kind of talk a lot today about my journey, because that's what I really know. And I think it can apply to any organization. And so I think that there are things I've learned that will benefit you all as you try to staff your organizations in more meaningful ways. And when I started the company, I just knew that I wanted everything that I didn't have in that first environment. I wanted a place where people were supportive and kind. And I've continued to have a growth mindset for all of my professional career, where I'm constantly trying to learn and do better. And so that's a lot of what we're going to be able to share this morning. So I think the first part really in successful hiring starts with preparing for success. And I think first you have to really start with identifying your need. And I think that may sound really simple, and I don't mean for it to sound overly simplified, but you know, in the nonprofit space, you often need a person who might be able to wear a couple of hats. They might be able to, fill a couple of different roles within your team. And so really thinking about what those are very clearly before you set out on the actual announcing and promoting is incredibly important. And, it's important to think about the skills that go with that need, because, a customer service person might not need the same skills as a bookkeeper or an accountant. And, when you look at marketing, it may not be the same as strategic planning. It might be truly administrative. It might be membership support. So it might be event planning and sponsorship development. And all of those different categories have very different skill sets. And sometimes in a nonprofit space, unfortunately, due to limited budgets and whatnot, you need to be able to combine sometimes some unusual roles into one particular position. And if that's the case, you really want to think about what those skills are, because you may just really need to hone in on how you can find the person that's going to be successful in that particular role. Think about the values and the traits. When I started out early in my career, it was all about skills and actual experiences in your workplace. It was about the programs you knew, the software that you had learned. But the reality is, and more people talk about it, I love to follow Zappos and study Zappos because they are known for having just some unique culture, unique hiring practices. But they really started to look very differently about the behaviors of a person, because it's that drive, it's that motivation, it's the kindness or the gentle nature of a person that really can't be trained or taught. Those are intrinsic values in a human being. Whereas a lot of these skills, right, you can easily put somebody in an Excel class if they need to advance their Excel skills. But, really thinking about those characteristics that make them successful, the kindness, the compassion, passion, and energy, those are things that you really can't train into somebody. So you want to make sure that you're looking at what values and traits that they may hold near and dear. Based on your mission-based organization, there might also be certain values that really make them a better candidate for you. And you may want to know what those are. I know that for us at Big Buzz, when I talk about values, we actually have 5 pillars that are incredibly important to us. And we really do interview every candidate to evaluate how their values line up with our values. Integrity is one of our highest prioritized values. Growth, gratitude. We want everybody to have that growth mindset. We want people to be appreciative and kind and just full of gratitude. Teamwork and collaboration is a huge part of that. And then we're also looking at people who understand profitability. Like, we want to be able to offer that to our clients. We want all of our people to be paid adequately. I think that more and more people are talking about compensation philosophies these days, and that is known to plague the nonprofit space, where sometimes you have to pay lower market rates and things of that nature, and that's making this search harder and harder. But I think on the flip side, right, you do want to try to be able to cover costs and help people have good livings, because we do have to meet people's basic needs in order to make them happy employees and keep them part of our team so that our organization can grow. So kind of looking at what your personal values are for your organization on the front end starts to help you find the right person on the back end. Set the salary range, and I really encourage you to publish it and include it with your job postings, because there's nothing worse than going through the entire interview process, ruling out candidates and finding this amazing, stellar candidate, only to find out that the salary range is completely a disconnect for the two of you. And now all of that time and investment has just gone right out the window. So I follow the practice, and I know that some states are starting to require people to include the salary range, but it just makes it better for everybody to know on the front end what that is, so that people can self-select if they can live with that or not live with that, so that you don't waste your time or theirs. What experience is needed? Really thinking about the types of, experience in the workplace that might be valuable for what you need. If you need a membership, manager, for example, then maybe somebody who's been in the hospitality industry would be a great fit. They're known for taking care of people. So just thinking about different alternative experiences that might bring a good candidate to you. can also be incredibly important, looking at volunteer experience and what they've done. But just think about what you think is going to make the best candidate kind of shine for you. Then of course you want to craft a job description. It's really important, again, in setting the level playing field, that the candidate's expectations align with your expectations, and having an outline of responsibilities really starts to help with that. You know, we know that not every job can be, you know, kind of sunshine and roses all the time. There's going to be the grunt work or the parts that maybe aren't as glamorous. But the more you can include that so that people come in with a full expectation, the more happy and successful that I think the partnership between you and any of your team members is going to be in the long run. Then, do you want a cover letter? We require a cover letter at Big Buzz Idea Group. I really like to utilize the cover letter from a standpoint of, it helps me see writing skills. It helps me see how people present themselves. It helps me see how they equate their experience, because sometimes the experience on the resume may not be as obvious of how it applies to my posting, but sometimes in the cover letter, a candidate can help me see why they think that they're a good fit. And so I think it also helps us evaluate if they read the directions. It's something so simple, but we need self-sufficient people, and we need people who can follow the guidelines when they exist. So those cover letters are really important. A lot of people these days don't do cover letters. A lot of programs don't necessarily facilitate cover letters, but you know, the best candidates who really, I feel like, are interested in what we have to offer, they follow directions. They reach out, they do the direct email, they go outside of the platform, and they make sure it lands in our inbox. And I think that that's just really important, because I know that a lot of candidates out there are just looking far and wide, but you really want to try to drill down so that people are really, you know, tied into you and your mission. I think it's important to really know yourself as an organization. When you are clear about who you are as an organization, your values, your mission, you are more likely to attract the right people. And I think that this was a game changer that I really only honed in on probably in the last 5 or 6 years. And it comes from the standpoint of, you know, we believe that our work should be fun. We exist to serve the nonprofit sector. We believe that you should work with a team that inspires you daily, and we believe you should laugh daily. And those things are really important to us. And I found that when I started putting that out more clearly via our social media and our website, we started to attract more people who also valued those things and wanted a positive work environment, who wanted to make a difference. And we started to really tie our mission into the people that joined our team. And, you know, I've had a great success in connecting with some people, but it really started to go, and I'm jumping a little bit to this whole leading with your mission standpoint, because I could find the people who had the skills, who had like the right passion, but I really needed to find those that resonated significantly about only serving the nonprofit sector in hiring for our team. And when you look at that leading with your mission, whether you are about, you know, ending hunger, or whether you are about, you know, all people being treated equally, or mental health, or whatever the situation is, when you lead with that mission and you can find people who can really connect with your core, they're gonna be more likely to stick around for a longer amount of time. And I think that I cannot stress leading with your mission all the way through your job posting, your website, your social media, every place that you can talk to people. It's so critical. And then, of course, outlining the benefits. Sometimes the salary may not be as high as you would like it to be, but maybe you can offset it with paid time off. A lot of people are looking for growth opportunities, and they want companies that will invest in them. And sometimes the flexible scheduling can be a really big deal. I know we work with a lot of women that are mothers. And so the flexible scheduling is just a really great benefit to our team. And that is something that not all companies can do. So once you've prepared all of that and ready to kind of announce your job description, then you want to start promoting the need. I've listed a lot of different places here that, there's the standard Indeed and ZipRecruiter. Personally, we've not had great success. We get a lot of people who aren't actually qualified. I really like LinkedIn's job board. I've had great success with that and being able to promote. They let you put one job posting for free that you can continuously run for, a length of time. And then with just fairly nominal dollars, you're able to promote your job posting for a determined amount of time. So you can put the amount of money that you want into it and really start to be able to get candidates. They will help you pre-screen. You can include some pre-screen questions. Do you have nonprofit experience? How many years of, membership management have you had? Have you worked with boards? Have you worked with committees? Do you have experience on marketing? All of those different things. And they help you kind of pre-qualify some of your candidates, which is really nice. And they do some automation so that if people are not a good fit, they can automatically get a rejection letter, which I think is always a nice touch. And as busy nonprofits who already are pulled in a lot of different directions, I think that some of those features allow you to look more professional without necessarily increasing the demands on your time. Don't overlook industry resources. There are a lot of job boards out there, a lot of associations, a lot of organizations where people that you might be looking for go. And so I think about, Association Forum. I think about the Illinois Association of Chambers. Like those places are good to see if you might be able to put out a job posting to find candidates who would fit within the industry and be looking for a job. Definitely you want to tap into your network. And these days, when it comes to diversity, stretching outside of your network further continues to be something that you should intentionally try to do. But definitely don't overlook the value of your network. And sometimes it's even a matter of making sure your board members get all of the details about the position to share with their network. Maybe you have some core volunteers, you want to put it on social, put it in emails. Just really, sometimes we overlook the most obvious things, and it's important that you think about all those touch points. HireMyMom.com is another place if you're looking for virtual assistants that can be really good. It's a lot of working moms who are looking for, generally different things. And so that can be another option. You might want to find a recruiter. There are a lot of recruiters out there. We have worked with Next Group in Evanston ourselves because they also focus heavily. They serve a lot of different people, but they have, also helped us hire more moms who are looking for positions and whatnot. And it was a really great experience. And they've just been a great partner throughout our journey. You may also overlook npo.net. Not a lot of people know about it. I recently got frustrated that my usual channels were not producing all of the quality candidates that I was looking for. And I went out to npo.net, and for a nominal fee, it's all nonprofit people. And because we're a for-profit company, but we serve the nonprofit industry, I know that I want people with nonprofit experience. And so the ability to tap into that was just invaluable, and it helped us to connect with the candidate we were looking for. You might want to look at groups like YNPN. They also have a job board and the ability to share out postings. Your local chambers can also be very valuable because they know people in the community where you're located. Schools and churches can also be great. We've had people find connections through that. There also are other city and state programs in a lot of places that you might be able, depending on the level of employee you're looking for and the programs, you might be able to find some great resources. And then Handshake is another place that if you're looking for interns, entry-level people in particular, it reaches out to several colleges. And so I think it allows you to reach further, to expand diversity of your particular organization and just reach more people. And I'm finding that Handshake also sometimes can help you reach out to more alumni, even for higher level positions. So those are just a few opportunities, because I feel like that sometimes is a place where people get stuck on where to post and promote. And I hope that you might find some value in that. And my closing thought on that is also just think about where your potential candidates might be hanging out. I think sometimes, that's where you can think about those resource groups, or sometimes even within an association or an organization, it's going to be, maybe it's a SIG that is focused on membership that you might be able to tap into. It may be peers, right? Peers in your industry. I know that there is a great group in the city of Chicago that, the chambers band together, and they talk, they connect, they share resources. And so sometimes reaching out to those peers that are in those collaborative spaces can be a really great way to promote also. The next step in evaluating the candidates to kind of see where your front runner is, I think starts to become sometimes overwhelming. I think the beauty is that you get to, oftentimes look at your candidates. I know there are a lot of electronic programs out there, a lot of things that are incredibly automated in bigger companies where they're using bots and they're looking for keywords. And I think sometimes you can really overlook quality people. Here I like to do an impromptu phone interview first. If I think that people are, I do the initial screen and then I do a phone interview. In my phone interview, it's usually meant to be like a 15 or 20-minute interview, very short, but it's my way to find out, like, A, if people are looking, are they answering their phone? Oftentimes I get voicemail. It's not uncommon. I'll leave a message. But if I can get somebody on the fly, it helps me know their phone etiquette, their phone demeanor. And then I just start with a few impromptu questions. It used to be 5 questions. Since the pandemic, it's become 7 questions. But I love to ask them, and I state, right, like, I may have caught you off guard and unexpectedly, but I'd love to start by asking, what about the position or the company attracted you? I love to see if they remember Big Buzz. And 9 times out of 10, the candidates that I've advanced, I've done enough pre-work and their cover letters looking good in the fact that they remember us. There's a reason they want to work for us. And usually we stand out. Occasionally I'll get somebody who honestly says, like, I've been applying so many places, I don't actually remember. And I make that like fine, but it really helps me know if my mission in my company has spoken to somebody. And so it's a great way to pre-screen. I love to ask them what their ideal next employment opportunity looks like. Based on what they describe, I'll start to be able to assess if it's a good fit for who we are as a company, if their culture aligns with our culture, etc. And then, because we are in an industry where things often have, problems, unexpected hurdles, I love to ask people about a time in their life when things didn't go as planned and how they resolved it. I've heard some great stories. I've heard about somebody on their honeymoon who was in the middle of a tsunami. I've heard, about general events where people have had to rush in and save the day, and everything in between. So I really love those stories because they tell me a lot about what a candidate is made of. I love to ask for their greatest accomplishment that they're most proud of in their life. It tells me a lot about who they are and what they stand for. Love to ask their values. I really have to, right? I talked about the importance of that value alignment and seeing almost all of our candidates, almost always, in integrity is just one of their core values, and it's one of our core values. It's rare that we miss that connection. These days, I also like to ask if they would be able to commute to our office. Our office is, we're working hybrid. A lot of our team is working remotely and sometimes in the office, and we have a lot of projects that bring us to the office. So I really do need to know that people can get here and that they're comfortable with coming in relatively frequently so that they can connect with our other team members and they can help out on a project, or the workload can't be shared effectively. And then I like to confirm that all of these candidates have also looked at our salary range, because I don't want to go any further if they're going to fall outside of it. So those are some interesting, ways that we kind of pre-vet our candidates. Again, I think looking at prior work history and how work history translates is important. And I know a lot of companies these days who are also doing video submissions. One one of our acquaintances is doing a broadcast out that the first step, instead of a resume, she wants a video about why somebody wants to work for her at her company. And it just starts to tell her a lot about the individual and kind of if they have the skills and traits that she needs. That might not be right for everybody. She's looking for a rather outgoing person, and they need to be comfortable with video. So just thinking about that and really thinking about how to evaluate your candidates effectively can be really good. I also think about who do you want to be involved in the process, because sometimes you may also want to get second opinions and have other people review the candidates, or sometimes you may want to bring the candidates in and then involve others in the interviewing to then also be able to compare notes down the road. The actual interviewing process. So because I've done an awful lot of teaching myself what felt right and what I thought was just the right thing to do, I recently utilized a service to be able to evaluate our HR and see where we could strengthen or what we could do better. And one of the most important lessons that came out of that session was the stressing and the emphasis on being consistent with candidates. It's incredibly important that you are so consistent across the board and that everybody is evaluated against the same criteria. So if you do a phone interview for one potential candidate, making sure you do it for all of them. It's critically important in this day and age. And so just really, if, whatever you do in the office, if you do, a series of tests or exercises, like making sure every candidate does the tests or exercises. And it may come at different levels in the process. Maybe, you don't do the exercises at the front end. I know I'll talk a little bit about exercises we've done on the back end for final candidates, but definitely being consistent from candidate to compare apples to apples is incredibly important all the way around. Again, confirm who will be doing the interviewing. Who's your second set of eyes? Who is your second opinion? It can be a lot of pressure. Sometimes you might be the only one, but involving your board or being able to discuss this with a board chair or a board president, it can be really important. If you have a larger team and you have people who will be directly working with the candidate, I encourage you to have them meet so that they can ask different questions and also see if they think the candidate's a right fit for the position. Outline your questions in advance. I think that again, questioning and interviewing is often a place where people really start to get tripped up. They don't know what to ask. And again, I've seen it shift in my lifetime where in the beginning it was all about skills. What have you done at this job? Do you have, office experience? What kind of membership experience do you have? Those things can become very important, but then drilling down. Give me a time when. Can you give me an example of when you had a membership problem and you needed to resolve it? How did you do that? Can you give me an example of a great idea that you introduced at your last organization and what was the outcome of that? So you want to drill down into those, deeper questions to start to ask for examples where they can demonstrate situations and what they're made of. And I laughed last night as I was just doing a final review of my presentation that, something popped up in my social media feed that it was 8 interview questions that top execs asked candidates. And it was so funny because it's like Elon Musk and Sarah Blakely and, Elon Musk, he asks a brain teaser because he needs to know about people's scientific abilities. So it's almost like a trick question. You're standing on the surface of the earth. You walk 1 mile south, 1 mile west, and 1 mile north. You end up exactly where you started. Where are you? The answer is the North Pole. Sarah Blakely asks, can you describe yourself in 3 words? It tells a lot about how a candidate is self-aware, what they value, what they're proudest of, to know if those things align with the position you're trying to fill. There's another one here that the former CEO of Etsy asks, tell me about a time you really screwed something up. How did you handle it? And how did you address the mistake? So again, I think that these really just drill down. What would someone who doesn't like you tell us about you? It really looks at how somebody can turn a negative trait into a positive or talks about relationships with other people. And I like this question a whole lot too. This is the president of Adrol. What are you better at than most other people? What's your superpower, and how will you leverage that to make an impact at this organization? So those are just a few examples. There's a lot of questions out there. I feel like I could do an entire hour on interview questions and how to drill down on values, work ethics, experiences, times that they fixed problems, addressed situations, etc. But the more you can ask deeply about what, even utilizing some real life scenarios. I'll tell you about a time when, we accidentally had a member of my team and I, Laura and I, we had a meeting and we locked ourselves out of the office unexpectedly. And we had to resolve that situation, and we did. And we got to our meeting and sorted it all out, no problem. But we started utilizing that as an interview question. What would other people do? How resourceful are they? So I think leveraging, real life scenarios and asking people what their result would be, what their approach would be, it helps you start to identify if they've got innovation that you need, or if they have that commitment to customer service, or, to going the extra mile, right? If it's an event role, we know that there's a lot of extra work that sometimes happens in the event side, and it's not nearly as interesting and, sexy as everybody always thinks that it is. So thinking through some of those pieces and leveraging that in the questions you ask can be really valuable. Make sure that you have a current application. There's a lot of things that have changed over time. And so staying abreast of what current guidelines are and what current applications should look like or can look like becomes really important. And that, again, is something that through my audit, I was able to secure a better application and realized how outdated ours was. And so, just, asking about past salary history and some of those things have started to fall by the wayside. So just really being able to drill down and work with maybe a professional, doing your research to make sure that you have a good application for a candidate is important. And again, if you ask one candidate to complete an application, then they really all should complete the application. It's not just about the resume, and it's really making sure that there's an agreement between you and potential candidates, that you're all agreeing to the same terms of interviewing and applying for a position. And then I ask if you want to utilize tests and or exercises. So at our company, we have been fortunate to get turned on to a program called Best Work Data. And it is really about looking at individual people's core strengths. We know that every individual has unique gifts and talents, and we like to play to people's strengths. We don't expect everybody on our team to be good at everything, but we do realize through like the Best Work Data program, it looks at each one of our individuals and then it plots them as a team against kind of a standard grid. And we can see on that grid if we have some big gaps. And, throughout the years, we have had a couple of gaps. And so we often know we need more people that might qualify in, a certain area. And maybe that is holding firm to the rules, or maybe that's being more flexible with the rules. Sometimes we need people who are more detailed, and sometimes we need people who are more big picture thinkers. And the value of equating them all in a grid is to just look at having balance and diversity in the mindset and the personalities, so that we know we've got a well-rounded team to make good decisions. And the beauty of that system that we have, there's a working with me report that comes out of it. And I love it because it also just helps us understand each other one-on-one. So we encourage each team member to meet with one another and utilize that report to learn more about working together. We have some people who are very fast processors. They need to intentionally slow down to make sure that their peers understand and have clarity on assignments and on projects and discussions. And then sometimes we have people who are far more thoughtful and intentional in how they think. And so understanding that, and that allows us to work a little differently with those people. So I think, having some kind of process like that, a lot of people use strengths finders to just understand people better. And it helps us be more collaborative and successful as a team. And then again, the exercises. We've gotten away from it a little bit, but we do a lengthy interview process here, and I encourage you to not rush it. Do what you think is right, but we generally do the phone interview. I usually do a first interview that's a deeper dive. Then we do team interviews. It can be anywhere from 2 to 3 team interviews, depending on who that person's going to work with. And then I generally do a final interview before making an offer. And we've even in the past done a series of exercises where we look at giving them candidates an example of a creative assignment that requires some, kind of instant brainstorming, that instant problem solving. And so we just have, it's a couple of exercises, but it lets us, again, look at on the spot writing skills, resourcefulness. We let them use the web to solve these problems or find solutions, but just trying to see how people process and think to know how they might address things has been really, really helpful. And then we move on to interviewing. So, I think again, in the interviewing process, if you've done all of this planning and preparation purposefully, then you start to interview for is the candidate the right fit based on their behaviors, based on their experience, and based on the fit. We had one candidate that unfortunately didn't work out for us. It was a pretty quick, they shine during the interview process. And I know one of you put this in the questions in advance, that sometimes people in the interview process are not what they appear in real life. And that's why we do a lengthy process. We want to try to talk about the organization. We want to try to talk about kind of where we're headed. We want to really try to know the person and dive deeper into the person. And this particular candidate was used to working with much larger organizations. And when push came to shove, our small but mighty team just wasn't the right fit. We needed somebody who could do it all. On the flip side, we recently interviewed a candidate and talked about, a time that they had to do something that, that was disgusting on the job, or that was less glamorous in a role. And, on the event planning side, I mean, people have been in dumpsters, people have been in muddy fields, people have done some really hardcore things. They've pulled all-nighters to make a finish line. And so when I hear those kinds of things, I just know that they have a little bit more of that stamina and that kind of demeanor that's going to push through problems. And we need that on our team and for our clients for sure. So just really trying to get clear about those types of things help. Show your personality and show your organization's personality. Again, you want to get past kind of that rigid demeanor. I often may even do an extra interview a couple of times when I felt that candidates I couldn't tell for sure if maybe they had a nervousness that, caused them to not present well, or if it really was them not presenting well. And so sometimes I do extra interviews. Also, sometimes based on the interview, I just know instantly that the personality is not going to be the right fit for whatever reason. No harm, no foul, right? It's just that I'm looking for the needle in the haystack and you're looking for the needle in the haystack that's going to be there for the duration, for a longer tenure. And I think that those things matter. Again, compare notes with anybody else who might do interviewing with you. And then you want to make the offer. You really want to outline it well. You want to, give a lot of details, make sure you're showcasing the benefits, and share that with your candidate. And then after, you hopefully close the deal with your, most desirable candidate. Ideally, anybody who really made it into that final phase of interview, I encourage you to take the time to follow up with a thank you. You never know when your paths might cross again. And when we found people who were really focused on our mission, we've also found that some of those people are willing to work in other alternative roles for us. We've also found that sometimes those people may apply again in the future and be a better fit next time. So just really kind of realizing that that's part of the relationship process, and that if they invested this much in making it to the finish line, letting them know I think it's important, and I think it says a lot about who you are as an organization and leaving a better taste in people's mouths. I've heard so many people who made it to the finish line. I was just talking to my niece over the weekend. She was the final candidate. It was down to her and one other person, and now it's been 2 weeks. So if you bring somebody all the way to the the near finish line, let them know if they were not the right candidate, and maybe even just end that on a very positive note. Less is more. You don't need to give a lot of details, and I encourage you not to be too wordy or feel like you owe too much of an explanation, but just the courtesy of a notification is important. Then, of course, there's onboarding. I think that oftentimes this is a place where looking back through my life, I think I've learned I did not have a lot of places that managed me well. When I think about my first job ever was at McDonald's, an amazing training program. They really devoted a lot. I can't even tell you how many days I trained on how to make French fries alone, and then what the process was to approve that I was making French fries properly. And to this day, there are many times if I hit a McDonald's drive-through and I get soggy fries, I'm like, oh, they failed. They must not have been trained right. So, we can't always do all of that intense level at that nature. But I will tell you that by comparison, most of the places I've worked don't do any onboarding. And it really is just join us and swim. And that is difficult. Sometimes in the nonprofit space, it's what has to happen. And we are always looking for candidates who can jump in and swim. I love to, again, one of our questions, right? Can you tell me about a time when you did not have, much training and you had to jump in and achieve a goal or oversee a project, and what did that look like? So that I can start to understand if this person has the ability to really just get it done and cross the finish line. Not everybody on our team needs that, and I may not ask that question all the time, but in certain roles, it's really important. But then the email welcome starts to set the tone. And these days, I think in a virtual environment, we are trying to let people know, are they going to be hybrid? What is the expectation for in the office? We talk about that during interviewing to make sure everybody's on the same page. Will they get equipment or not, right? Like we let people work hybridly, remotely, but we have all the equipment here. I have all the technology. I've invested in everything for in the office. And so if they want to work remotely, then there is an expectation that they use their own equipment for that, because I have everything here at the office for them to be able to excel in their role. And so just knowing if what's right for your organization becomes important. I know some of you have, physical offices where you need to be open. And so rotating the staffing plan so that different people are there on different days and different people can fill in those gaps and that the door can always be open is really important. So try to outline as much of that. What do they need to bring on the first day? What is the dress code? Just really going into those details to help them come in excited and prepared. It matters. And then I love to do what's called love bombing your employees. A lot of people, you may love bomb your members, you may love bomb your donors. You're always thinking about that gratitude and appreciation. But I love when people come to work at Big Buzz that we welcome them with a few very small but important gifts. And it's just a way to let them be excited on their first day, right? They're joining a new team. We want them to jump in and be part of this team in a meaningful way. And we want to help them get acclimated. And we know that they're proud to be here. And so we share a lot of Big Buzz swag and just really start to try to make them feel as welcomed as we possibly can. We also have a book that is incredibly important to us about doing what we love in the service of people who love what we do. And so that book is a gift to every employee. I don't know that they all read it. I hope that they do, because there's a lot in there about living with a lot of integrity, living with a lot of authenticity, and really the passion and being who we are. And I think that the world needs a whole lot more of that these days, especially for people who are doing such great things like the nonprofit sector. Hybrid climate requires a lot more intentionality. I am very fortunate that a lot of our team members are not far from the office. They come in pretty regularly. But when you are working remotely, having regular check-ins. I know one of our clients that we work with, they have 15-minute check-ins in the morning with their team to just get people fired up and focus on what's happening that day. Some people do a weekly meeting, but I've heard other stories about companies that didn't talk to people for like the first 3 months of the pandemic. I mean, that's crazy. You cannot hold your team together and really expect people to be vested in your team and your organization and your work if they're not coming through on a regular connection point. So, and even now that the world is opening up, right? Like maybe coming together for a picnic, maybe making time for an outing, it might start to be time for some of those things. So just plan what that looks like and really continue to try to get your team to come together. Maybe you just encourage social coffees, where your team can meet one-on-one, once a month, to just also have time to catch up personally, since we're missing some of that personal talk time in the office. Obviously, when you onboard a new candidate, you gotta complete the paperwork. There's a lot of requirements. I know a lot of payroll services will help you with this. I love that we personally use Gusto as our payroll provider, and they make it so easy. They've got it all, set up in a systemized fashion where people get to put their checks in for direct deposit directly through the program. The benefits are all outlined there. The collection of the W-4 and the Illinois W-4, all of that happens organically. And I just have to confirm the I-9s are with the appropriate supporting documentation. But making sure you do all of that is really important so that you are following all of the state and federal guidelines on hiring and employment. And then, when you're onboarding, training on those core processes. It's more than just the procedures manual. I've shown up on a lot of new jobs in my day where here's the procedures manual, go read it. And that's all there is. We've been able to utilize more videos these days because, technology is at our fingertips. So sometimes we're putting simple things into video that help train and explain things so we don't have to do it as often, and everybody can still get the same information. So I just encourage you to think about who on your team can split it up too. I don't do all of the training myself because I can't. I wear a lot of different hats. And so I have people on my team who train on different aspects of the job because different people are better suited for different pieces. And as an organization grows, you want specialists on your team who know and do things that you don't necessarily do. So training should not always be through a single source at all. And I like to set up a training schedule. My newest process is to set up at least the first week training schedule, inviting people to a lot of meetings, letting them observe, letting them know that they're, to see how we operate or how we conduct ourselves in meetings, and continuing to just work through what those processes look like has been really important and helpful. So I encourage all of you to continue looking at those types of things and how you can be more effective in your organization. And I will mention that on the team building side and on this onboarding, we still do the virtual first day lunch with everybody. We also, as a team, to foster team building, we are doing First Fridays, and we alternate lunches with happy hours virtually and in person. So we are just connected regardless of where the team is. But a driving force in keeping people at an organization is really about being somewhere that they like the team they work with. So if you can capitalize on having somebody who's tied to your mission and they like the team that they're part of, then you are just setting yourself up for a longer term relationship. And I am finding great success with those metrics. So continue to think about how you can focus on that. And I know you're already very busy professionals, but I can't underscore enough how important that is. And with that, my closing quote today is to find a group of people who challenge and inspire you. Spend a lot of time with them and it will change your life, says Amy Poehler. And I think I find this in so many of our clients and in so much of the great work that they're doing. And I would talk about one client project that we managed during the pandemic as a great example. The organization was going through a really difficult and tumultuous time. And they have a really incredibly important mission, not that everybody doesn't, right? But this is about suicide prevention. They were going through a really difficult time. And the people who were left standing were the people who were most devoted to the mission. Over 50% of the organization jumped ship. There was not a lot of collaboration between the ones that remained, and they did not know how best to try to reorganize themselves to be able to keep the organization together and go forward. And what we really did is we had some full day retreats where we really focused on team building. We really focused on their why, and we really focused on their commitment to the organization and their role within the organization, so that everybody could start to understand what brought one another there, how they were similar, and how they all had a different role to play in the success of the organization. It turned out to be incredibly helpful, and I'm so proud of where they're at now. So I can't emphasize enough how important I think all of this work is. With that, I would love to open it up for any questions. I think that we've got a few minutes left to just talk about if anybody has things they want to put in the Q&A that we've not yet covered today. I'll give you just a minute to see if there is any questions. I also continue to think that everything about the hiring process is really around being able to continue to advance. You know, there's a lot of lessons to be learned, and I think that really trying to evaluate people is incredibly important. We have a question. How do you approach performance evaluations during the new hire year? That's a great question. So, you know, we generally are doing regular check-ins. I believe in immediate feedback. We are a team that tries to do some radical candor. We try to invite difficult conversations, and we try to invite the team to, again, stay focused on the mission. And then we find that when we're focused on the mission, that sometimes constructive criticism, we don't take it nearly as personally. We look at it as how can we serve the mission better? And so we generally are doing, 30-day reviews. We will often at 60 days start to do an individual work plan. I think that these days, knowing that some people want a job that they just like, where they're comfortable and they are not looking for great salary growth. And then we know some people really want great salary growth, and maybe they're willing to work a little harder to get it. So we at Big Buzz, we take the time to do an individual work plan with every one of our employees, and they tie into their professional development goals, and they tie into our company goals that we've set, and they tell us how they're going to contribute, because at this organization, everybody's a meaningful part of our success, and everybody helps us get to the next level. So those people who maybe want to get more involved in sales and outreach, like, they may be entitled to greater financial rewards on the back end if they're helping to drive the financial success. Other people we evaluate differently, right? Like, how much innovation are they bringing? What kind of networking are they doing? How well is their customer retention level? And so for you, thinking about, maybe it's membership recruitment, maybe it's your financial goals, your donor development, but really thinking about what that looks like and laying out a plan can be very helpful. And then what we do is we review that plan every 90 days throughout the course of the year. You could review it mid-year, so that I know some of you, again, have great time constraints. And so being able to tackle that helps you be able to refocus on those goals, bring people back, because sometimes in the day-to-day you start to stray away from the goals. And then they tell me what they want for rewards. Taking time to get to know your employees and those you're interviewing a little bit on a personal level is important, because we all have different intrinsic motivations. And for some people, it might be about the time off. For some people, it might be far more important that they are leveling up on the salary side. So just knowing your people, and a lot of people want just that opportunity for classes or programs for ongoing growth. So when you know them better, you can reward and recognize them better for their efforts that they put in during the year. So thank you for that question. As we bring today's Breakfast Club to a close, The other thing that I would mention is that we do have a lot of resources for powering up nonprofit professionals. So if anybody wants to have a deeper conversation about hiring and culture, I would be happy to talk with you. Happy to follow up. We do a lot of consultation. We've been invited sometimes to help interview candidates, to be a second opinion for people. Always happy to do that. We do offer these breakfast clubs on the second Thursday of every month as a gift to the nonprofit space, trying to continue to share our lessons learned along the way with others. And then we also have the Power Cell program that brings together peers within the nonprofit industry to also be able to share experiences, to be able to learn from one another and solve problems that, maybe I find that nonprofit professionals have to always be on for your board, for your staff, for your members, for your donors, for your clients, your constituency, whoever you serve. And so having a safe space where peers can come together in a small group setting consistently on a month after month basis, I've really seen great things happen in the Power Cell program so that people can just find solutions to some of their problems and try to think outside the box or find some new ideas to help them reach new heights. And with that, I would like to thank you for attending this morning's Breakfast Club. I hope that you found this information valuable, and I hope that you'll be able to be more successful in hiring for the long run. Have a great day.